Good morning. Welcome to the May meeting of the Development Authority. We're happy to have you all here. Our city is booming.
Yes, it is.
Can I have, please, a approval of the minutes of the regular meeting, April 16th?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Mr. Murphy, still have a little money. Thank you. What did you have?
Good morning, everyone. Going over your cash inflows and outflows for the month of April. You should have the detailed listing on your tablets, I believe, the financials. We will, of course, again be putting the larger significant items up on the board for everyone to see. The first page of your financial cash flows page should be the operating account activity, which begins with over $4.7 million of operating cash on hand. Again, for the month of April, we had a land sale occur that was settled and finalized during the month at Corporate Landing. This was the sale of the land related to Point One, over $2 million coming in of cash being received. That, as well as the option deposit that the company had paid, gets set aside in a restricted cash account to be used for any capital maintenance that occurs at the park. But this is you'll see the cash inflow for that sale that was finalized in the month of April. We also had, with the charity golf tournament that occurred, we received over $10,000 in sponsorships from companies participating in the tournament. That money also gets set aside in a restricted cash account to pay for the expenses of the tournament, which we're finalizing now, and then there'll be a remittance to the named charities we hope to have occur as soon as possible. And then we also had a little bit of interest that we earned on the checking and savings account, over $3,000 coming in, which is part of the authority's discretionary operating funds. For your cash disbursements, we had over $230,000 was transferred to the city treasurer's office. This represents the 2018 Live Nation rent the authority receives. We receive it here since we're the named party on the lease. And then after retaining our admin fee of $25,000, the difference of what was left over, in this case, $236,121, is all transferred back to the city treasurer's office to pay for that rent. And then we also had, towards the bottom of your sheets, some expenses in Corporate Landing. This is for the Corporate Landing Stormwater Master Plan, December engineering fees. This is the money that comes from the capital maintenance account that we maintain for the parks, pays for these. So at the end of the month, authority operating funding on hand, $4,784,274. I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has on the operating account inflows and outflows.
Thanks.
If not, I'll move to the incentive program. Again, also for the month of April, over $2.8 million of cash on hand with the authority. Only receipts were a little bit of interest, over $500 being earned on the checking account we maintain. For your disbursements, we had an APZ1 payment. This is a fee for an active construction permit at London Bridge Commerce Center. So the fee for that, $650, is going to be an annual fee for us to maintain a permit there for any construction that will occur. This will come paid from our incentive program here when we file for reimbursement with the city's CIP we maintain for that corporate park. So this is the outflow for the permit payment here. Below that, for Town Center, we're finalizing what's called the punch list for all the public streetscapes, public infrastructure and streetscapes at Block 9. So we had a payment of over $95,000 as that punch list is nearing completion. This was originally $1 million of EDIP funding was set aside to pay for all the streetscapes and improvements over there, and we're nearing completion of those payments now. And then just below that, over $2,200 for engineering fees related to the bio park. We'll fund the cost here from the initiative funding that the city sends to the authority, and then we'll file for a reimbursement with the biopark CIP, that the city maintains for this park as well. So that's over $2.7 million of cash on hand. We'll reconcile that cash to available incentive funding going forward. We adjusted your receivables as well as all your commitments for awards that were approved in prior months. So we're looking at $1,758,000 a 118, or excuse me, 1,758,220 for leftover in available EDIP funding going forward as of the end of April. And I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has on inflows and outflows for the park, for the incentive program.
Any questions? Thank you.
Then I also have a second item for the authority. There's no action to be taken on this amount here. This is for the month of May. We give out the authority's next fiscal year 2020 operating proposed account, proposed budget for the account. This is for the next 30 days, authority members to review, to look at what staff is proposing for 2020. We give you some comparisons for what's actually happened for fiscal year 19, as well as fiscal year 18 actual expenses. But if there's any questions authority members think of over the coming weeks, please send them in to staff or to the chair, who will get them to us, and we can make adjustments to the park or to any of the budgeting items on here. Just want to point out, you'll see for your revenues for fiscal year 2020, we had a few new bonds that were issued in this fiscal year, so you'll see an uptick in the revenues that we're projecting for the next fiscal year. And that's why we have that change from budgeted 19 going to 20 is that uptick there. Just want to explain that for you guys. But were there any initial questions on the proposed budget now? Again, there's no action being taken at this month. Yes, sir.
The amphitheater box seats, is that a discretionary expenditure or is that contractually required?
I haven't found any items where we're contractually required to purchase a box each year. The amphitheater separately invoices us each year if we want to, and they've also worked with us on pricing locks, so if we wanted to enter a multi-year agreement, but I have no document that shows that we're required to do it each year.
Madam Chair, may I jump in on
I'm
the
sorry, I
back of
thought that it
table?
was.
No, no.
Yeah, so, not a contractual obligation, just a longstanding, a longstanding agreement on behalf of the authority. We do anticipate that this is that this item gets some discussion over the next 30 days before we bring back the final budget.
Is
I
there a
apologize, Bill, I thought it was a contract.
Yeah.
Is there a reason for the increase over what we?
So that is, that's an increase in the cost has been passed through by the, by the amphitheater. So I think it's just the growing cost of having those tickets. So it's, I would tell you we're at a number now where we think it's worth talking about.
That would be next season.
Next
Next
season, that's
season,
correct.
not
Yeah,
this
that's right.
season.
Not this season, but the next season.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I've neglected to ask if there's anyone that would like to say anything. 5 minutes. Thank you very much. Thought it was a Okay, never mind. Okay, request for approval authorizing $2,200 for appraisal of Bonnie Road property, former Days Inn of Economic Development Investment Program, Part D funds.
Yeah. Yes,
I'm
Madam
sorry,
Chair.
Taylor.
Yeah, I'll give some quick context on this one. You all will remember that we issued an RFP in 2017 to market the parcel at Bonnie Road. Olympia Development, who will be the next item involves directly, was selected as part of that process. We are approaching terms with that with the company, and this is an appraisal of the property that was requested to move towards the end of that agreement.
Comments? Motion?
Oh, I have a question. So how does this dollar amount sort of rank or relate? I mean, normally we don't see numbers this large, and I understand this is to help defray the cost of infrastructure. But how does it compare with, steel's the only one I can think of that's up in that sort of range?
So we actually have a slide as we work through the actual item for for consideration of the EDIP, where we'll show you some clear precedent
Okay.
on prior investments that the authorities made. But like, if you can, let me get to the appraisal, and then I'll
Okay.
cover it.
Could I have a motion just for the appraisal, please? Second? Thank you.
Oh,
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to abstain. I understand town bank is involved.
Thank you. Thank you for, all in favor, opposed? Okay, thank you. Now, Lisa, we'll go with, request for approval of a resolution authorizing $604,000 in Economic Development Investment Program Part B to Olympia Development to offset costs associated with road improvements, wetland mitigation, sewer, and stormwater improvements for Bonnie Road.
Great, thank you. And so, to the disclosures here related to specifically to the EDIP item, and then what I have here, this is the presentation that City Council saw because, Mr. Murphy, to your point, we're talking about large numbers here, so we wanted to show the deal in context with everything that's being considered here, and so without reading that, just giving you all a moment to review the disclosure, then we'll dive in. Okay. Site history, pre-1999, we've since been able to find out, we went back to the deed, 1996 was the first time the city acquired this piece of property. It's 11.77, almost 12 acres. We resold it, we sold it and then repurchased it in December of 2003. In October of 17, an RFP was published. Proposals were received from Olympia and Harmony Investments. Olympia was selected in December of 17. And then you can see as we worked through a series of other phases, in January of 19, we began sort of finalizing a development plan, and then in March of 19, Olympia submitted preliminary costs that have informed a draft sales agreement. Before I go on, I would also like to recognize that Chip Cutchins from Olympia Development is here with us today. I just want to welcome Chip. Thank you. The offer, as it began, was presented to City Council, was 11 3/4 acres. We had identified 7.5 that were developable. It was assessed at 1.7 million. The developer offered 1.8. Without getting into the inner workings of the City Council deal, the appraisal that was in your prior item revealed a value of $2.312 million for 5.78 developable acres, and we're working through that conversation with the developer and council as we finalize terms now. But as we move into the rest of the deal, this is the total investment as we have it today. Professional office between 100 and 140,000 square feet, which we value between 25 and 35 million. Now, why the range on the professional office? It's important to note that we're still in a preliminary design phase. We're not on site doing borings yet to know exactly what can be fit on the site, but we feel like we've identified a range, a minimum and a maximum that we can fit based on the size of the site and some of the constraints, particularly with the limits on developable acreage. 240 units of multifamily, we value at 42 million, and then we're talking about parking. It's 782 spaces, about in the neighborhood of 11.7 million for parking. The parking features in the City Council conversation. Here's the site. You can see it's just open land today, and you can see we've laid in the Thalia Creek Greenway just so you can see how it impacts the site. Important to note, heavy wetland impact on the site, particularly in the back here, and then here at the sort of what would be an eastern edge that will feature in the conversation as to actually one of the reasons that we are asking for investment in this project. Here's a preliminary site plan from the developer that would talk about the form of development. So we are asking for denser development than would traditionally be seen on a parcel with these challenges. It's consistent with the town center SGA principles, and we believe that that mixed use development is needed here. And so, forgive me apologize to the public for moving away from the mic for a second. But here we have 60,000 square feet of professional office for building 1. This is the 242 units of multifamily. We have a parking deck here. This multifamily is built around a parking deck. And this is a second office building that we hope will be in the also 60,000 square feet. Again, we need to advance design to ensure that we can fit it and that the soils will carry it, but we believe that that's possible. Challenges on the site. The heavy wetland, you can see the wetland impact on the back as we have no buildings placed there. Also, you can see there's a challenge as it relates to what do we do with stormwater. We can't detain stormwater in the wetland. So one of the things we'll be talking about in just a moment is how to handle that stormwater. But also, as you can see, it's a small site. It's on Bonnie Road. Now, to give you an idea of sort of just perspective where we are on Bonnie Road, the entrance here is very near the intersection of Bonnie and Independence. There's no way to get 782 cars into and out of the site every day with a single access point. So as you can see, we've drawn in a second point of ingress and egress on the backside here. That'll also feature in our conversation in a moment because one, for just flow of traffic, safety, a number of reasons, that access is necessary, but we have to cross a wetland to get there. Third, and we'll talk about this in a moment, is some sewer impact from the increased density. So the city council item that's associated here, $11.7 million for parking. That is, we're asking for an arrangement similar to what was done and the city council did with City View 2. As it relates to the EDIP Part B request that's in front of you today, as we get into those three components we talked about just a moment ago, for the roadway, we're asking for $142,000 to do two things. One, primarily to muck out that wetland so that we can get it, so that we can improve the drainage there, and then a road can come across it. For stormwater, we are recommending or asking to participate in the construction of underground stormwater detention. Why is that? We'll show you in a moment. We actually did the fiscal impact to demonstrate that the net present value of this deal is higher with the second building. So if we don't underground the stormwater, then we would have to build a BMP where the second building is proposed. The loss of that 60,000 square feet creates an incredible impact on the net present value of the deal and the value to the taxpayer. And so we'll be happy to talk about that in just a moment. And then the off-site utilities. Through this process, we have learned that the sewer infrastructure on Bonnie Road is undersized. And so this would increase the capacity on about 110 feet of that line. Fortunately, the pump station can already handle the increased capacity. It's just the line cannot. So this is to increase about 120 feet of sewer line from 8-inch to 12-inch. As you can see, we're now showing the developer's investment at the bottom with $2.3 million in the land, $75 million in improvements, and again, you have an EDIP request in front of you for $604,000. So, as we showed a minute ago, where normally the city would value its debt over 20 years. We're working with the developer's number. So you'll see 25 years here, but we can tell you that the net present value over the 25 years is better, $1.7 million higher, specifically with the addition of 60,000 square feet more professional office. Important to note here, we worked with Budget and Management Services and the assessor's office to basically pull the revenue, to develop the revenue picture here. We worked with the finance department to build some projections on debt service and net present value. In an effort to be as conservative as we possibly could, we only looked at direct revenues. So in this net present value calculation, there are no indirect revenues. This is basically just real estate and BPOL, business license. So there is no indirect revenue that is added to this deal in light of the businesses that will operate in these spaces. So important to know. Also, there's no spending in the district that is contemplated from the multifamily. We focused only on the direct revenues. So, Ms. Murphy, to your question from earlier, this size is taking up a little more screen than I've got, but what this shows is that there's a long history going back to February of 2000, where we made some significant capital investment and then came back and provided EDIP support to close gaps. Most of these would be around streetscapes specifically, but nonetheless, it's important to note that there is precedent that is well established for what we're asking to do here today. With that, I'm happy to take any questions, but we request your support of the deal. Oh, one other thing I should mention. Your approval today is contingent on a following action by City Council related to the parking. So this is not the Development Authority does not hold this real estate. We just simply ran the solicitation for the city. So the decision to, one, declare the property excess and sell it lies with City Council, as well as the willingness to participate in parking. So it's important to note that any action you would take here today is contingent on a second and third action.
Also, it's going to require 9 votes.
It does. That's right. So this is on Thalia Creek, which makes it waterfront property, which means it requires a supermajority of City Council to approve it.
9 votes.
Yeah.
Go try to find the water. Any questions? Oh, we have a lot of them.
Sure.
Let's start, Brian, and go on down.
No.
Oh, he didn't? Okay. Then we'll go
Can we go
down.
back to the site plan?
Sure.
My first question is there a timeline where they have to build the office building along with the multifamily? Or
So-
is it just get built in phases? Because of the retention pond we were talking about before?
So great question. We have, your investment here is 100% performance-based, so we anticipate that the project comes up in phases. Building 1 comes up with surface parking initially, and then the garage, so building 1 and possibly the multifamily come up in a single phase, but on the frontage here. And so so once building 1 is up and stabilized, and then hopefully building 1 and the multifamily, but worst case, then the multifamily and second garage would come up ahead of the construction of building 2. And so the idea is, it does 2 things for us. One, it allows us, it allows us the time we need to develop the parcel, and to get that first building on the tax rolls as quickly as possible. It also provides revenue to carry the deal.
And then the second question, is the dotted line, I can't see that far, is that the wetlands border?
It is. It is. So you can see we've got wetland impact coming all the way around and then wrapping down. One other thing, we're building, there's a drainage easement that comes right through here as well, that will actually, we're going to be limited in the amount of weight that we can put on top of that as well.
What's the setback you have from the wetlands to the building?
From the wetlands, I don't know the answer to that at present, sorry. I know that we're also sort of constrained on the frontage by a sizable Dominion Power easement, but set back off the wetland, I'm sorry, I don't know that.
Okay.
Bill?
On one of the early slides, you indicated an offer of 1.8 million for the land, and in the subsequent slide, you indicated investment in land of 2.3 million. Is that infrastructure or site improvements, or what's the difference between the two?
No,
Rosemary
it's,
requested
yeah,
this appraisal.
yeah,
Okay.
that's what
And it came in
it,
$500,000 more.
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, the land appraised for more than the assessment. So we had that discussion with the developer on Friday and are working through it.
So 2.3 then is the.
2.3 is the appraised value. 2.312 is the appraised value, yes, sir.
Sorry, my
Ladies.
question goes back to the response to the RFP, and this probably, I'm sure predates you, but when they responded with their proposal, did they include participation, or was it communicated that they were expecting the city to help pay for infrastructure?
I don't know that that was spelled out specifically in the RFP, but it would not be unusual for that expectation to exist. I don't believe it was specifically spoken to. I can tell you we don't typically include it in RFPs, but the request frequently comes sort of as we're working through the deal.
Anyone else?
Is this, I believe you had briefly mentioned in the last meeting, but are these new tenants that are coming to the area, or is this?
So I don't know that I can answer that when standing here, but we know that there are tenants proposed for the building that we are scoring as expansion here in the marketplace. That's about as far as I can go
So
on
we're
that.
not displacing.
No, not to my knowledge.
So Lisa, was your question that did the deal work without city help? Is that what's kind of
Well, I
leading
know
up to? Yeah.
we were looking at some RFPs, or responses to RFPs recently, and to compare apples to apples, we wanted to know, okay, here's the price that you're proposing, but are you expecting participation? Are you
That's right.
are you expecting the city to build you a parking lot, you know,
That's right.
to compare, but, so that's why I was wondering if Harmony was either respond, or was it an apples to
They
apples
know they
comparison?
could get
That they could get,
$40 million from
exactly,
city help, right?
exactly.
Did they?
So what I can tell you, we were, I'm not gonna say ambiguous, but we were silent on this point traditionally in RFPs that the office would put out when we did RFPs. We learned through the solicitation that Ms. Murphy's talking about that we need to be a little more prescriptive in our documents when we publish them. And I would tell you, going forward, we're pretty clear about what we're willing and not willing to do in an RFP.
Anything else? Anything else? I hear a motion.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
because this is
sir.
Tom Beck again, I'm going to abstain.
Goodness, okay, thank you. I hear a motion. Any more discussion?
I guess just one comment is that the 500 more they're paying is gonna come close to the 600. So,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
the 500 more they're paying that they went into the deal with is it's a net, it's almost a net difference, and to your point, moving forward, they all need to know what the deal is going into it, but I think this one's covered by the
Yeah.
increase, thanks to Rosemary's request.
Thank you, Rosemary. Any other discussion, or, well, then could I hear a motion? Hmm?
There's no motion. Can't adopt the item.
Should I ask?
Just seems like the RFP should have included that information.
Yeah, how long, so this was 2003, how long ago was the?
So the city first bought this property in 1996, sold it on or around 2000, 2001, reacquired it in 2003. Important to note, when this started, it had a building on it. The building was taken down at some point in there, and it's been vacant land since the city reacquired it in 2003.
Okay, but this is not, I should have asked it.
Do we have to take action before council takes action?
I don't know the answer. I mean, that's really a question for the attorney.
What was the
I'm-
question?
Do we have to take, does this body have to take action before council takes action?
No, sequentially, we had these actually aligned on the same day for some action, but in light of the appraisal and other negotiated terms about the use of parking, we are asking for a deferral this evening with city council's action. It would mean a month delay, obviously, and trying to get something that's been working since 2017.
Well, Mr. Jones or Rosemary, do you have any guidance for us on what to do?
I think I would defer it if I were you.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to defer?
So moved, I move that we defer it to our next meeting.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Any commissioner have anything they'd like to talk about, or priorities, or the activity for the month?
I did,
Yes.
I know you and I and several other folks went to the .1 groundbreaking, which was very exciting.
Gosh, wasn't it?
At Corporate Landing, and I remember, as we got Global Links, as we got our first data center, and now with .1, and frankly, just being out there and looking at the property, it reminded me that, you know, we had design guidelines in place for Corporate Landing when it was supposed to be an office park. And now that, fortunately, it's becoming something different from an office park. We've got data centers and, with the undersea cables. I think it's a good opportunity for us to liaise with planning and the planning commission to figure out what the design guidelines should be. I know a while ago we talked about setbacks and landscaping and berms and design, and frankly sound attenuation is a concern that folks have. They're really a better group. Planning, I see Bobby's here, but they're in a much better position to be able to provide us with some assistance on what those design guidelines should look like going forward. So I would, and I mentioned to Taylor that it would be something where a couple of us maybe liaise with planning commissioners, but I think we really need to get some folks in planning to look at what those design guidelines look like going forward.
It's a
We
great
had a
idea.
group of amendments in 2017 that we can revisit, to bring those to you.
Yeah, I think it's worth
it-
looking at again, because I've heard some feedback through planning commissioner that the concerns coming from some of the neighbors have to do with sound and buffering and that type of thing, so.
Yeah, we can.
Absolutely.
We
That's
probably
great.
should walk you through the amendments that were done contemplating data centers. The noise, frankly, a little bit apples, oranges that people are thinking about because LLC and the type of operation here. We've worked through that and done sound studies on that to understand the differences, but perhaps a revisit of what
Sure.
was amended prior.
Well, Joe spent a lot of time with me on planning, so would you work with Lisa on that, Joe?
I will do that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Allen.
Yes, ma'am. Let me finish my note here.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. So start with some sad news, and he was unable to be with us today, but Gerry Stewart retires at the end of this month. True to his to the promise that I made to him, he said no plaques, no pictures, no nothing. Just let me ease out, and so we'll do that. But what I do want to say is what a help Gerry has been to me in the short time I've been here, but also particularly on the administrative side of our office. He has been one of the unsung heroes of this department, and has done great work for us for a long time, and we will miss him dearly. But like I say, after 30, I believe, 4 years,
Wow.
I guess we got to let him go. That's,
I don't think we have a choice.
that's right. I don't have a choice. So, but I do want to, just publicly thank Gerry for his service and support in the time that he's been here. Also, you all will know that, or most of you know, that we have been working through a series of searches to staff up. I'd like to introduce Vicki. Where is Vicki? Vicki, if you would stand up. As you all know, Linda said retired on March 1st. We've worked with HR, gone through the search process. Vicki Kelly has been a longstanding member of the finance department. Will be joining us as the new administrative technician to support the authority and do other work in the office. Vicki has experience working in the purchasing office first, with requisitions, purchase orders, and the city's procurement card program. She spent the last 2 years in accounts payable, where she's been cutting all the city's checks. So she comes here with a strong controls background and strong understanding of how ordering just good financial process. Prior to being with the city, Vicki directly supported a small authority in North Carolina, where she also brings some handy experience in minute taking and working with appointees. So we're delighted that she was able to join us, and it's strong. She has also, I don't mind telling you, she's been on, prior to my coming here, she's been on my team since I got here, and she's somebody I've leaned on heavily, so I was delighted when I saw that she applied. Also, where's Olivia? So as you all know, Olivia O'Brien has been a long-standing member of this department, and we're delighted to announce that 18 years. That's right. I'm delighted to announce that she'll be moved. She's been acting as my executive assistant since I got here, basically, or a week after I got here, I think. Glad to announce that she'll be taking on that role permanently here, and so So
And who is the former city employee of the year?
Yes.
that's right. That's right. So, easiest decision that I've ever had to make was, Olivia has been again just a part of the foundation of success that this office has had over the years, and we're delighted to offer. It's always great when we can promote from within, so delighted to offer her that opportunity. We have 2 other searches that are wrapping up now. We've had 1.5 rounds of interviews for a business development rep 2 position in on Ray's team. I say 1.5. I think you've got a couple more, and then you're done, right? And then so we're excited to be coming back to you next month with announcing a business development rep 1. Also, I'm interviewing business development coordinator candidates on Thursday. So we anticipate we'll have 2 new members of the team when we come back to you in June. And also, we have 2 more searches that are underway now. A project manager search that wrapped up last week, and another coordinator's position that will advertise in the next week. So all around exciting time for us.
Would you explain what these positions are?
Of course.
Like, something 2 and something 1, I think.
Sure. So a business development rep 2 is really the sort of the engine that runs our office. We have our coordinators that are team leads. We have rep 2s that are sort of out in the community and out actively marketing a series of working conferences, prospecting in the business of creating jobs here, but very much that the tactical force that drives the office. The coordinators, all their direct reports to me, and so the coordinator that we are recruiting specifically is someone that we believe, or not that we believe, that we know we need working our international recruiting and the sectors of manufacturing that we would be looking for internationally. And so very excited about the pool of candidates that we have in both of those searches. It's great to know that Virginia Beach is still a great place to work and can generate that the talent that we've seen in those searches. So very excited to work through both of those. 2 other things to quickly hit: the Innovation Park Road. So as you all know, what we sort of the legacy name, the Bio Park, we now refer to as the Innovation Park. We had hoped that there would be a building and a road in by now. We're a little behind there, but what I can tell you is the bids from the road came in within our engineer's estimate. I had to isolate a little additional money to cover contingency, but we were within the number that we had hoped to be. Those monies have been identified. We meet with Budget Management Services today to just dot the I's and cross the T's to make sure that the contingency has been identified properly. But I spoke to the project engineer yesterday, and he indicated that contract is being routed for signature right now. So this is the place where we can announce that we're building a road in the Innovation Park.
Good.
Very exciting for us, and just know that we'll be in contact with some other things around sort of launching that project. And the other thing I would have mentioned something about the Point 1 groundbreaking, but thank you very much. That's good. That's all I have.
Oh, one thing, Taylor and I went to the LifeNet seminar, I guess it was a seminar. Our own Al Diaz from the Economic Development MEDAC was
Right.
there speaking, and his child died when he was at UVA, and they donated the child's
That's right.
organs. Yeah. And then his wife died, and they donated it, and Al is a recipient of LifeNet. And it's just amazing. Janet Wright, who was the assistant U.S.
That's right.
Doctor, U.S. what is it?
Surgeon General.
Surgeon. Well, but she's not.
It's not the
Anyway,
assistant.
she was here, and it was just amazing that we have this facility in our own city. Yeah, it was just a full house listening to the stories of recovery.
I do have one more thing.
Okay.
I was working off the list. Forgot to look back at this one and hit the most important thing on the list. As as you all know, or most of you know, we we lease a building to the city that is used by the Human Services Department for some of their state programs. That lease is up for renewal. We serve as basically a pass-through in this space. Nothing overly complicated about this, but just wanted to make sure you all knew that we were renewing that lease moving forward. The city has paid the rent, so it's we're ready to move forward there.
Okay, great, thank you. Anything else? Okay. The chair will entertain a motion to recess into a closed session pursuant to the exemptions from open meetings allowed by 2.23711 Code of Virginia as amended for the following purposes. Prospective business or industry. Discussion concerning a prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the business or industry's interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the community pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A5. Contracts. Discussion of the award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds, including interviews of bidders, offers, and discussion of the terms or scope of such contract, where discussion in open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, pursuant to Virginia Code 2.23711. Second your motion?
So moved.
Second. Yeah. Call the roll, please. Thank you.
William Brunke,
Yes.
Brian Cuffey,
Yes.
Taylor Franklin,
Yes.
Penny Morgan,
Yes.
Peter Mueller,
Yes.
Lisa Murphy,
Yes.
Mike Standing, Joe Strange,
Yeah.
Scott Wood.
Yes. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.
Is that